Hi, good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Digital Accounting and Assurance Board of ICAI, Dr. Ankur Kherwal, Secretary of the Board, extends a warm welcome to all the participants joining us today. Webinar on Indian DPDP Act 2023 Introduction and Relevance for Accounting Professionals. We are delighted to have around 1,000 members who are keen to understand how this landmark law influences the accounting and audit ecosystem. Your presence reflects the growing commitment of our profession towards strengthening data protection, digital trust, and governance. Today's session has been specially curated to help us understand the key obligation under the DPDP Act, penalties and consequences for non-compliances, practical relevance to audit processes, impact on client data handling and professional responsibilities, and finally, how CAs can prepare for the new compliance environment. To guide us through these important aspects, we have the honor of hosting distinguished leaders of and our eminent faculties. We are honored to have with us C. Arpit Kabraji, the Vice Chairman of Digital Accounting Assurance Board, whose leadership has driven several transformative initiatives in forensic accounting, digital assurance, emerging technology, and capacity building for members, regulators, and law enforcement agencies. Welcome, sir. We would like to also welcome our eminent faculties. We are delighted to have CA Vijay Srinivas sir and CA Premnath D sir as our today's faculty. Both of them are well-known experts in data privacy, emerging technologies, and assurance framework. Their deep knowledge of data governance and their ability to simplify the complex regulations make them one of the most sought-after speakers for this domain. We are grateful for their presence and look forward to their insights on the DPDP Act and its practical implications for professionals. But before we formally begin our technical session, we would like to hear a few words from our leader. From our leaders, may I request C. Arpit Kabra sir, the Vice Chairman of the Board, to share his remarks and share his perspective with all of us. Over to you, sir.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to yet another webinar of this Digital Accounting Assurance Board. Thanks, Dr. Ankur Kherwal, the secretary of this wonderful board. Friends, let me tell you, some of you must be thinking, "Ki, what happened? We started the webinars in between, and we've lost again. We were not there in the middle. Again, we've come back." So let me tell you, while we were not there in webinars, we were doing some wonderful, something extraordinary stuff. We are coming out. We are soon coming out with our new courses, as Ankur mentioned that we're talking about DISA revamped courses. We are talking about sandbox environment. We're talking about diploma of our highest sought after course on forensic accounting and fraud detection, the FAFD, which was just a certification, but now very soon it would be a diploma course. We have come out with a very strong publication on early warning signals, something that is again one of the most sought after, because mind you, there is a huge vacuum in this space, because no one has. So there was only one small circular by RBI which talked about some early warning signals. Apart from that, there is absolutely nothing. And today here is ICI, yours and mine ICI, which is now trying to make sure that we give a stamp of our expertise, our experience, and our knowledge in defining what could be an EWS. So look after that publication. Do get your hands on that publication, and it should be it's must in the every toolkit of an auditor from now on, I believe. Come to information system audit standards. I think these are some wonderful place of standards. So this will revolutionize the way DSAs have been working. So DSA qualified people, I think for you all, it's gonna be a very exciting times, because it's now time that we actually deliver as system auditors. And digital assurance is a function that we have now been brewing for a lot of time, and very soon we'll be in front of all of you with this wonderful concept called DXFS, the digital transformation of a chartered accountant. Our audits, our assurance will evolve. I recognize the presence of Premnath Digalaji and C. Vijay Srinivas. Premnath ji is in his super attire, in his spiritual best, you see, and Vijay Bhai is also here. I believe to do something extraordinary, you need that advantage, you need that extra edge. And today, while you hear about one of the biggest revolutions that is going to hit this country, the DPDP Act, the uh, you know India has been a hugely a data producing country, data consumption country, and the digital personal data protection. So no one has been really taken care and bothered to take care of um, our personal data. The way this act has evolved. So 2 years ago, this act has been notified. This was already approved. The assent was provided and was approved by the president of our country. But now, recently, the rules have been notified on DPDP Act, and that is why this becomes very exciting. This becomes very important because from now on, you will start seeing checklists, you will start seeing engagements, you will start seeing lot of actions and actual compliance with the DPDP Act. So, for example, if you're entering a building now, if someone is asking your photograph, if someone is asking your Aadhaar card, if someone is asking your OTP, your phone numbers, I think it's time they have to relook. Under DPDP Act, maybe they are not right to ask this. The consent forms are now important. Under the DPDP Act, if there are three important concepts that all of us should know and take care of, one is data principal, the data fiduciary, and third is data processors. Thanks to this DPDP Act, you will witness massive and huge data servers being set up in our country. A great infrastructure boost that would happen. Of course, that will bring in a lot of opportunities in terms of chartered accountants doing the system audits and various other aspects, including the infrastructure readiness. But apart from that, most of the organizations who want to use the data of our country for the country, for doing some activities in the country, will have to now keep the data right in our country, in those servers right here in India. That's going to be a big boost for all of us. This can be a very big opportunity. Only thing is, you need to understand this act and you need to understand the implications. You need to understand its applicability. You need to understand what are the ifs and buts of this act. Let me tell you, friends, one of the biggest highlight that, if you thought any act is alive because of the penalties it contains, be it the income tax act, it's dreadful because there is say 100 to 300% of the tax evaded. That could be a 271C kind of a case. If GST, there is some other case. If MCA, if any other thing, there are penalties. This act, friends, brings in a penalty of a massive whooping 250 crores, up to 250 crores. Now that is in the game. That is the game. That is the number. And I think that is the litigation that can happen around these numbers. Now that is the cost of a data leakage. And therefore, I'm sure whatever Vijay and Premnath today will try and bring in, please keep exploring a perspective of how do you actually use your forensic skills or your auditing skills to establish whether there was a data breach or there has been a data leakage. The data fiduciary has not really acted in the right sense of utilizing the data of a data principle. And if you are able to prove that you've got evidences, well, here's that's a big opportunity once again. So this is a brief layout of maybe overall on what is happening. But now let's cut to the very nitty gritties of this. In the absence of my chairman, Siddhaniva Sharma, I think he's been a great source of strength and pillar for all of us in making sure. Today there is a CNAG. We are training the CNAG in Hyderabad, and probably he's just occupied there. Otherwise, he would have not missed this thing. But yes, we are all very excited at DAB to understand about DPDP. Should you need any more information after this session, feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to let us know, and keep following DAB for more and more such exciting revelations and importantly updates. It's time now, friends, we evolve as DXFS is for sure. Let me all tell you that under DAB, a lot of initiatives are happening. We've raised funds for Indian startups only on behavioral financing. So you see there's a huge shift in the trends of people. So every chartered accountant is now expected to take data, evaluate that data, and on a digital give a digital assurance of that data. So no balance sheets, no ITRs, but pure assurance on digital data be it a fintech, be it dashboards of a say a gig worker, or be it the ONDC platform. What is your performance on these dashboards? Only basis of that you can raise funds for your clients now. I think that's going to be a great shift. So more about it, but yes, welcome to this yet exciting and a very I consider this as a big revolution in this country, where privacy is just gimmick so far, but this act will bring some seriousness about it, and let us see how can we get the best of the opportunity, because we are the ones who are best placed to do this. Of course, there are advocates, there are engineers who are queuing up to work in this framework, but let us take the best first mover advantage. Thank you very much, and welcome Vijayji and Premnaji once again.
Yeah,
Look
thank you.
forward to hearing from all of you. Ankur, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for your valuable insights. With this background, we now formally begin the technical session. I would now request our distinguished faculties to take us through today's topic
Yeah,
and help us understand the compliance expectations, obligations, and professional implications under the DPDP Act. So, over to you, Premnath sir. Over to you,
yeah.
say Vijay sir.
Thank, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. At the outset, I thank DAP for giving this wonderful opportunity. It's great that both chairman and vice chairman are young, and their initiatives is taking profession to the next height. Like as Arpit sir was saying that the DPDP Act is going to change the way in which the profession works now. You all know there is no business without one paise, single paise, there is no business. Now, where there is one paise, there is a data. Where there is data, there are two things attached to it. Privacy, one is privacy, the another one is sensitive information attached to that data. Data has two sides of a coin. One side of the coin is the privacy of the data. The other side of the coin is the sensitive information built into that data. So now you have a triangle of data. One paise involved, meaning rupee is involved in the data. On the other side, privacy and data, meaning where there is one paise, there is a chartered accountant. In the sense where there is money, chartered accountant is there. Now, on one side of the coin, I have to maintain paise or rupees. Finance, I have to maintain finance on one side. Invariably, I have no option. Invariably, I have to maintain data. Data security and data privacy, both to be maintained now. And both are highly regulated now. Both are highly regulated, meaning data privacy is regulated by DPDP Act. Data sensitivity or sensitivity is regulated by Information Technology Act. 1 rupee or whatever rupee we are talking about, and it is regulated by many other acts like income tax, GST, PMLA, call whatever it is. All business is regulated by something like 300, 400 enactments. On the other side, data which is invariably fixed into it is again maintained by, and that is a challenge. And this challenge, we are all welcoming more so. The dynamic leadership of DAB is making chartered accountants to prepare for these challenges. That is the beauty of it. Nowhere in India, not even lawyers or not even any other professional community has come forward to talk about the DPDP Act so early, and it is chartered accountants, especially under the DAB, which we have come out openly and started talking about the intricacies. You can see not many publications on the newspapers about, except for one or two publications that the journalists are getting affected by it. That is a recent news article in the newspaper. Other than that, there is nothing. But the proactive way of DOB talking about the data privacy and its implications is really wonderful. I thank Daya sir and Arpit sir, both young leaders, so dynamically forcing us to learn. I rather say they are not forcing us. When GST has come into play, along with GST, unconsciously, involuntarily, we have learnt Excel. I hope every member will understand, accept this. Without my interest, I have learnt Excel, more specifically reconciling and VLOOKUPs, whatnot formulas. Heavy data in the GST has been reconciled, I have learnt it. Now, we will be learning cyber security because of DPDP Act. We will be learning ERPs. We will be learning good lot of things because we are exposed, and that's the beauty of DPDP Act. Okay, before I run into all these things, what I'll do is I made a small content in the small content in HTML. I will do one thing. I'll just quickly sum up all in one time, very straightforward. I'll run through whatever from first to the end of it. I'll just run through quickly and have a full grasp of where are all it is going to touch. And then I'll come back to the formal PPT when myself and Vijay Srinivas sir, who has contributed huge amount of research into this PPT and the other content, which will be sharing it with the members, will be discussing these things. As Vijay sir is traveling, the connections may get on and off disturbed, but never mind. We are there to fill that gap if there is any lag into this. Okay, let me just go into the straight. I'll be sharing both PowerPoint and the HTML. First, I'll run through the HTML, then I'll go on to the formal PowerPoint presentation. Yeah. Yeah. So kindly confirm, sir, this screen is shared.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Right. Okay. So it all started with somewhere in, if not in 2023, when the DPDP Act has come. It has been way forward. OECD, when you're talking about international tax, we talk about OECD. In the same way, OECD has already talked about DPDP. And after that, GDPR was there, and then Puttaswamy case was there. Even before that, Sharma's case was there, wherein the Supreme Courts have differed on the privacy and personal liberty differed, and then ultimately they have settled on the privacy, and that's where the law has taken its shape into the DPDP Act into it. More specifically, Vijay sir will be touching upon. As I said, I'll quickly run through the total 360-degree of this act, how it is going to touch, and then we'll move into it. Basically, Article 21 is more about fundamental principles of personal liberty. Then, from personal liberty, it has gone into the one minute. It has just gone into privacy law. Then what exactly is this privacy? Privacy is a right to control personal information and maintain a private space for it. This is where case Puttaswamy case example. What example we can give for this is apps cannot collect location or contacts without the consent of. After this, the Puttaswamy case has come out from the Aadhaar, when the Aadhaar, while issuing the Aadhaar and all, they were collecting heavy lot of data like iris, then fingerprint. So much of personal data was collected, processed, and there were times when the COVID vaccine time, that's a time when the data was leaked, and then the total Aadhaar data was compromised. And that's a time when whether do we need to really share all this information Is this private? Is it necessary to share? All these discussions have come up, and then there was no regulation in this country, law, except for the Information Technology Act, Section 43A, and the rules in 2021 combined with that. But they were not sailing together because there was no agency which was implementing the Section 43 or Act, though certain is an agency, certain is emergency response team only, but doesn't have a regulatory uh, powers to regulate this, and hence there was a gap between the privacy 43A privacy related and implementing agencies. Many things have gone up to the Supreme Court and came back, and that is when the central government has taken a proactive. From 2018, they have come out and then they have again taken back, repealed it, and now you have a full act in 2023 with rules now set in, and we are just waiting for the May 2027. By then, the privacy will be on the systems. Okay. In what way this is different from the actual Article 21 liberty is? Liberty is the freedom to live as one wishes within legal bounds. That is Article 21, wherein IT Act 2000, where you have a section 66 and 72 for privacy violations and all. Example, we have a freedom to choose career or express opinions. Okay, fine. Now, what is the key difference between this privacy and personal liberty? When Article 21 was there, so much of fight gone on for years together on this privacy. Privacy is more of control over personal information and space, whereas personal liberty is more onto the freedom to act within the legal limits. The privacy is more on the data, body, and communication. Personal liberty is more on the actions and decisions. The example is not sharing a medical records is my privacy. Then choosing medical treatment is my liberty. The basis for legal basis for privacy is Article 21 and DPDP Act and IT Act. The liberty is coming under Article 21. So privacy is more into the dignity in private life, whereas liberty is onto the free personal experience. Okay. Why all this suddenly an act into all these? Is because of, as I said, because of the digital data. Okay, if digital data is not there, whether privacy is a matter to be controlled even in the otherwise? Yes. Why we are so much worried about the privacy and liberty at this point of time where there is a special act now? Reason is, as I said in my initial opening remarks, first data is generated and then a human being is moving now. Rather, I'm just saying, I'm exaggerating consciously. It is first data that is created and next the human being is moving now. Every movement of human being is now with data. And this data, who is controlling it? Where is it? Where this data is getting stored in a place where I can't control today. Like I'm using my cell phone. I'm using my cell phone. The moment I'm using my cell phone, my preferences are recorded. Can I control my preferences? I can't control. I no more can control my preferences that are recorded, transmitted, and at the same time used, misused at different locations. And this is how the way, meaning how much of data I am emitting, how much of data I am emitting. I really don't know how much of data I am emitting. Now, what is the intricacies of it? Like, say, if someone talks about, what happens? I am in a village, I am a farmer, I am in a village. Why should I bother about privacy? Why should I bother about liberty as long as I get my ration card? As long as I get my 5 kg of ration, why should I bother about all this? But it's not that rich alone or high net worth individuals are getting allotted. It is more the poor. It is more the poor who is getting exploited today because of the digital data. Like we all know that in uh, in one of the state near Bihar and all, where the Aadhaar cards were compromised, and then the Aadhaar card, the ration cards were deleted. Number of Aadhaar cards which were they thought were fake and all were deleted, and immediately number of real beneficiaries got affected because of Aadhaar. And how this Aadhaar data was deleted through running an algorithm or using AI, they have thought that this data is fake. This data is fake, and they have decided yes, this data is fake, and then let us remove it. The moment they have removed the data, real beneficiaries got affected. The ration distribution got affected, meaning that the data is automatically involved into various processes. That is one issue. My health records are compromised at one point of time. There are instances where AIMS, All India Institute of Medical Sciences records were compromised. I said COVID data is compromised. Okay, compromised, what happened? My health records, say for example, a village health records are compromised. A district health records are compromised, which are in the borders of a particular state. So what? The DNA can be analyzed. The health records data, the people living in that areas, their lifestyle can be, and that can be threatened. Meaning, if the data is compromised, it is internal, not only my personal I'm going to get affected. Privacy, personal privacy is going to affected. Remember, it is the country's internal and external security is going to get affected if the data is breached. We all know the China's app, China loan lending apps has collected huge amount of data, and thousands of crores has gone cross border. It has gone out of the country. Money laundering, etc., has been happened because of the digital data compromise, and hence this needs to be regulated, and regulated through a different processes. You need to have an act to that. That is what I just quickly run through, that how digital data invades, as I said, excessive collection, how it is regulated, given unauthorized sharing, tracking, behavioral tracking. Today, who is talking what? Today, heavy data is gone out. Whatever I am speaking in the WhatsApp is being collected, and people are able to predict what will be my what is going to be my next sentence is predicted because of ML, and which is affecting my privacy, which is affecting my liberty. Meaning, if someone is trying to say, oh, next you are going to speak this, then I'm going to shut my mouth. If I'm shutting my mouth, it is invading into my liberty. And this is how the algorithms are discriminating. It's a chilling effect, it is manipulating. And these are the ill effects of the data. So this needs to be controlled. How this needs to be controlled? You have a legal protection where DP sections 5 and 13 will go deep into the sections, but let me just quickly run through all this. Not only the DPDP, I said the data means it has two wings. One is privacy and the other one is sensitive. Privacy is controlled by DPDP and sensitive is controlled by the Information Technology Act. I keep repeating this concept. I keep repeating this concept at the cost of boring you, that please understand it is not data is not only a privacy, data is also sensitive. And this the same data is now controlled by two different acts. When it is two different acts, two different authorities, and business has to do this. When business is there, chartered accountant is there, and so we run behind all these things dynamically, and that is what we are trying to discuss now. The summary is collecting and sharing without consent, how it is getting invaded. Example, app tracking locations secretly. We know that how the data is again collected. We know that delivery apps are there where we are able to track every minute whether what is happening to my delivery. We are tracking where the car is going on. We are tracking where the person is sitting here, and that's the ability of data today. Then threats and vulnerabilities. Cyber, what we have already talked about, I'll just quickly running through cyber crime, hacking, phishing, then a ransomware attack. under the, these are all related to the sensitive, and hence it is controlled under 66 and 43A. Of course, 43A is now fully into the DPDP. Malware, Trojan, spyware, identity theft, again DPDP, PAN Aadhaar, insider threat, that is where the employees misuse social engineering, fake calls for OTPs and all, data leakage and surveillance. These are the common threats. So what common threats types are, which we have already covered, and the those who have already done the DISA, they understand what we are talking about. This is what I'm again saying, that we are very close to the DPDP Act. Hence, we have to jump to implement this to our business community. So common vulnerabilities is weak password, easy to guess, and then unpatched software, poor network, human errors, and so on. And then legal protection to all these things is consent-based processing, security safeguard, and penalties under Section 8 and 33. And what is that IT Act is doing? IT Act is punishes the hacking 66, identity theft 66C, privacy breach again 72, and more now into the DPDP Act. Constitution, anyhow, you have these things. The real-time cases, what I was referring to, COVID data leak, exposure of vaccination, and then Aadhaar data. All India Institute of Medical Science, where ransomware attack, hospital servers were locked, and then the huge data was gone out. Facebook WhatsApp leak, where user phone numbers exposed. Now, how to protect these data. So impact on poor and marginalized population. Someone might be thinking that, why should I bother about this DPDP Act? Like, that's how, sorry to say, is at least I can say 50% of the chartered accountants are not. I can dare to say, because as I was interacting in the AI sessions, I was asking how many of them are aware of the DPDP. Not even 10% of them were reacting positively to that statement. When the educated, when the professionals are about to get into, then you can understand the poor and marginalized population, how they are, and then those vulnerabilities. Okay. Now, can I ask every user to just get disconnected with these cell phones, disconnect with creating with the data and all? And it is highly impossible. Today I can live without oxygen, but not without data. That is where we have now. Under that scenario, now there needs to be a regulation, and that's what the DPDP Act is all about. So it is going to impact. And we have already talked about predatory loan apps with high fees, harassment, blackmail, and suicides, and whatnot. So betting apps, data misuse, and it also has a national implications where social economic instability and so on. Now, we have seen these recent cases, as I was already referring to, Chinese app, crypto scams, and harassment, blackmail, and so on. So how these DPDP Act is going to control is what. Now, if I have to go into and to understand the act, I also have to understand about the data principle, data fiduciary, significant data fiduciary, and the data processor, which anyhow Vijay sir will take up. What I'll do is I'll just give it to Vijay sir, and then I'll come back to it. I'll just share the sir. Vijay sir, can you take up, sir? Sir, is it convenient, sir? You are on mute, sir.
Yeah, sir.
Can I
Sorry
share
for that.
the?
I'll do one thing. I'll just share.
Yeah, I am sharing the PowerPoint. I'll share the PowerPoint. Yeah, yeah, yes. Sir, is it convenient, sir? Yeah, yeah. Vijay, sir, is it convenient, sir? Yeah, okay. Right. Okay, I'll continue it.
Sir, hope I'm
So,
audible.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Uh, uh, to the committee and Ankur for coming up with this kind of initiative. And I'm sorry for the inconvenience. In fact, morning flight was rescheduled to evening, and I'm rushing towards catching this flight. So that's
You
it.
can be little louder, sir.
Yeah. How is it now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Uh, without taking much time, I'll try to add couple of important points from my side with regard to this particular act and also rules. And let's see how we can take it forward. Sir, if you can just go down to earlier slides, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay, you can skip this, please. I think you already given heads up about the privacy and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this shares. I'll do one thing. I'll just share
Right.
this. Let me try doing it. I
One.
believe it's
Yes.
visible now. Okay. I'll just quickly go to. Yeah. See, friends, why we are so worried about this particular DPDP or at this point of time is timelines are so tight because once these rules are notified on this November 13th, the initial phase is already implemented except for a couple of rules like Rule 4 and all, wherein Rule 4 will be applicable up to 12 months from the date of notification. And again, the DPBI, this digital office and all will be effective from 18 months after the publication. So that's the, apart from that, rest of all, I've already commenced the implementation. That's where we should be worried because we can't set the things right after the entire board is set up and entire consent management is set up. We have to correct whatever is required in our offices and also help for clients in a way that they can prepare for this particular thing. And that's where these sessions and also the couple of certifications what TAB is coming up with will be of a lot of help. Now, coming to personal data, we might say that, okay, what exactly is the personal data? I mean, is it this the name or the Aadhaar card or a photograph, or is there anything? Because why we are so worried now? Because if I go to some what you call snack bar, I might be even served samosas or which is on a Aadhaar card Xerox copy where we hardly worry about any of those things because as an Indian citizens, we don't worry so much of privacy wherein our friends and relatives just walk into our offices, our house, we speak openly. We don't bother about privacy. But the problem here is data is no more with few people or few individuals. Data, once it is digital, it is moving across without the control. That's where the threat and the vulnerabilities which this digital data is being carried is the concern now. That's where all these acts or the rules are speaking about. Now, what exactly are these personal identifiers? We have these four categories, wherein direct identifiers, where I can directly identify someone, like say CAD Premnath. So obviously, someone says Premnath Degala, chartered accountant. Immediately, someone can identify, or if it's mail ID based on his Aadhaar number or the phone number. These are all directly linked, where it will identify who is that particular individual. And apart from that, there are indirect identifiers, which means I may not identify based on one particular parameter. Like, say, if I have an IP address, if I'm running who is IP is this, and I'm finding some other information out of this, and combination of those are giving an information of a particular individual. Okay, like geostamps or GPS, all these things. So these are all indirect identifiers. And the third one, which we hardly bother about, is the behavioral data, wherein I'm not capturing any of the information directly or indirectly, but I'm running some statistics. I'm identifying certain behavioral aspects of an individual, and using that, I'm able to identify that particular individual who is using this. Okay, so it could be, as I said, no social media browsing kind of. So these also are the way where someone can identify the personal identifiers. Of course, when it comes to behavioral data and all, these might be dealt with in different acts, may not be directly coming into a DPDP, at least through the particular provisions. And sensitive data is again something like health records or financial statements. And these are the things why we should be worried about. These things will decide what is the nature of a data fiduciary. Okay. Then you might say, what exactly is this data fiduciary? I'll come back to that. But let's understand the life cycle of data. Okay, you have these five aspects: collection, storage, processing, sharing, destruction. I'll just say, share one simple example, like processing. What exactly is it? Let's say your client has asked, what was the income I've declared, or what were the items I've declared during the 2023 in ITR? Can you please just help me identify? So I've tried to go into that particular folder, open the ITR, trying to access that. That accessing what I do is also a processing. If I'm trying to access, and that there, of course, there is a voluntary requirement raised by the client, and that's how I'm reaching that. But that accessing, whatever you call, you sharing, opening, closing, deleting, everything is a process. Okay, so that is where we should be worried about, because we deal with these kind of things day in, day out as chartered accountants. Now, if in case I'll skip on this vulnerabilities and all, because I believe Prerna sir has spoken about, and also I will be sharing this 40-page PPT, which is much more detailed for you to read. We'll just go to directly to this particular what exactly is those identifiers, what we should be thinking about. Okay, I'll just go directly to that particular area. Yeah. Now, if in case you are worried about this new act, I'll just make it simplified. We are all very much familiar with 44 AD, 44 AB and all. Okay, so this act is something which has only 44 sections. So that way it's not that it's huge like your GST and income tax. And second thing, rules are almost all half the same, half that particular 44, around 23. So it's not too tough for us to have a one read within a 2-3 days kind of thing, just to have a casual read of what exactly this act is. But overall, we need to understand what are those typical aspects I need to catch from this particular act. That's the main thing. Okay. So for that, let me make it a much simplifier. Data principal is nothing but the person individual to whom this particular data pertains to. I mean, is the owner of the data. I mean, if I'm saying K Vijay Srinivas, I'm data principal for K Vijay Srinivas. I'm data principal for mobile number of mine. So the owner of that particular data is nothing but the data principal. Okay. So that means each and every individual can be classified as a data principal. Of course, the name will come once the processing of the data will initiate. So the processing will be initiated by someone called data fiduciary. That means the person who is trying to make use of this personal data of an individual is called data fiduciary. So if I have to give an example, say your client for whom you are doing some statutory audit, you would have verified the ESI, PF records and all. So the client is data fiduciary, and the staff of client are data principals for that particular data fiduciary. So that means all the employees, all the vendors, all the data in individual capacity, these are all principles for data fiduciary, that is your client. Okay. Now, what is data processor? Let's take it the same example. I'm performing this audit wherein I'm trying to access the data provided by the data fiduciary, including the payroll records, debtors, creditors, or whatever it may be. So that means because I'm processing the data at the inception of data fiduciary, on the request of data fiduciary to perform this audit, I'll become data processor. So here we have these three roles. Data principal is the person to whom the data relates to, on whose inception the particular data is getting processed is the data fiduciary, and the person who is processing, as I said, anything. We call it audit, review, opening, closing, deleting, whatever you call it. So these are nothing but the data process. So these are the three key roles. If you can understand these three roles, you're much more comfortable with the act. Okay. Then you have the significant data fiduciary, which is nothing but the same data fiduciary. But what government thought is, if some entities like banks or insurance companies or hospitals, if they are dealing with sensitive data like financial health records and all, they need to have little more additional care. And so that's where they said, okay, let's classify them as significant data fiduciaries, wherein we'll put some additional responsibilities, obligations on them. That's how they coined this significant data fiduciary. So what I'll do is to make it even more simplified, I'll add one more example. I'll take a scenario of the client approaching us with a tally backup and requested us to perform an audit. So client has all the payroll information, debtors information, creditor information, wherein you are having their PAN numbers, their GST numbers, their addresses and all that. And he has approached us to perform an audit. So here, considering the earlier example, those people who are there with the client are data principal. The client himself will be the data fiduciary, and we are data processor. Now, I started evaluating those with the help of some software like Tally, because I'm processing the data of those data principles in a particular application or software. The Tally also will become a data processor. That is, Tally by as a company will also become a data processor. Now the same Tally, if maintaining this data in a cloud, let's say they've tied up with Amazon and AWS, they are maintaining this data, the cloud also will become a data processor. So you can imagine like that's how it is expanding, the scenario is getting expanded. One from the right data principle, you have data producers and all those who are involved in processing the data will become the data processor. Now, why we should be so concerned about this is we deal with, of course, there are we are comparatively better status position for the reason that the client voluntarily approaches us to perform an audit and voluntarily shares the data. So there, I may not have such kind of pressure in terms of consent management. But leaving the consent management, we have rest of other things like data erasure, need to know basis, what you call, or to what extent I can retain these, and all those things, all those documentation are to be taken care of. So when it, I'll also share a couple of things about this particular act, which I think should make us feel proud, for the reason that this is the first act which has started using the terms called she or her, giving a symbolic recognition, unlike any other acts. And the beauty of means none other acts of globe has this, wherein they've put this nomination clause. That means if I can nominate someone for my personal data, even of my expiry, even of my demise, no one can use that particular personal data, because again my nominee will become the data principal of my data. So that's the beauty of it, wherein they have a nomination facility also. And the third beauty of this is entire ecosystem of DPD, digital personal data, is going to be run by digital mode. The itself is going to be having a digital office by virtue of Rule 20, and it's called a digital by design, where the entire mechanism of compliances, regulation, everything will be through digital office. That's the beauty of this particular act. Yeah, special care have been provided to children and persons. Of course, we'll have a couple of illustrations, and here there are certain exceptions in terms of tracking children, well, especially for those schools and all. But reason apart from that, we may not have a targeted advertising on children by once this act comes into full force through consent mechanism, wherein we are seeing those advertisements, children photos are published saying first rank, second rank, and all. Those will definitely get minimized, because targeted advertising is part. No, even if the parent give a consent, it's still not permitted in this particular act. Okay, I'll just quickly go to the other aspects before I hand it over to Premna sir. And few things like there are for the data principles, there are rights and wherein say like request saying that I want to see what is my I are holding and whatever related to me, how much of data, for how long you're, I anytime have right. I have a right to request them to delete the data or to correct the data. Okay, so these are all the rights which is classified. I mean, rules also have specified clearly about the mechanism of exercising those rights. And then parallelly, you have duties also, wherein I should not be probably giving a false information. Let's say client, for the sake of convenience, if he's sharing some other's email ID in the income tax return while filing. So this is something which falls into that particular falsification. Or for the sake of convenience, I might be using my spouse mobile number to get an OTP for the banking transaction which I'm using for my own business. So that is something which might be coming into this particular thing, wherein there is a straight penalty of 10,000 for each of those non-compliances. Okay, so these are the things which you should be remembering, and of course penalty and all. A lot of people, they be speaking about huge penalties, 200 to 50 crores and all. But again, these are the maximum penalties. It's not that every transaction, every such non-violence will have this kind of penalty. And not for the reason that this session is meant to have basic information involved as a CA or a chartered accountant, to what extent I should be looking into this particular act. That's the reason I'm not going technical. We have other sessions also coming up where each of those will be taken up in a detail. Okay, so the rules draft was released, and so people said, okay, there is no bother, let the new act come. And once the new act comes, then that people said, okay, let the rules come. Now the rules have come, and people say, okay, let's wait for May 2027 when the board has to form and all that. See, what we need to understand, once the rule are been published, okay, once, I mean, the official gazette of rules have been published on November 30th, the act have already come into force. They have only given this particular time to what you call take care of all those things with regard to the past data, whatever we had, and to develop those mechanisms, what is required under this DPDP. This 12 months or 18 months of time is given for that particular purpose, not that something has got postponed. Okay, act is pretty much live now. It's only that the time what they have given to set our things right. For the reason that we deal with lots of clients data, and we might be having some data where there are no more clients of us. We have resigned from the audit, and regulatory requirement is also saying that okay, 7 to 10 years at the most you need to maintain the data. And beyond my regulatory requirements, still if I am retaining, and that's non-violence of, I mean, what you call non-compliance of this particular act, and that's where we have to relook into offices, relook into the data. And I would rather say, just like the way we categorize as high, medium, low, we also need to categorize the data as personal and the sensitive, and identify what is the data which is required to be not required to be written. Either I take a consent from the client to have to read for whatever purposes. Otherwise, I need to go for the erasure and all. Thus, as I said, I will not get into technical kind of thing. Yeah. Most important is these rule 6 are safeguards what we have to follow. And one more, I most of the time get worried is significant data fiduciaries. Of course, you have banks, insurance, hospitals, and all coming into the picture. But if you see the definition, or if you see the terms what they have used in the definition of significant data fiduciary, more or less it somewhere reaches to us as well, because we deal with lots of such data as an institute. We deal with a lot of such data, both personal, sensitive, and all. If in case in future something like that clause comes in wherein they might consider these kind of professional bodies also as a significant data fiduciary, and that's where it's going to be more and more challenge, because we need to have a lot of encryption mechanism, data security control, access controls. A lot many such things will come. And in fact, I would rather say this is a boon for us. Through this act, at least we'll also get into the technical things like, you know, security and all, which earlier it was only for DSAs. Now slowly we can get into that kind of learning mode as well. Okay. I'll just keep on this financial penalties. Sir will be talking. So a couple of illustrations what I thought of covering. Let's say when you plan for an audit, usually the practice is you would have created a WhatsApp group with your article students and also the client accountants, and the WhatsApp group will be active for a while till the audit is completed. So this entire process, what we follow for such a simplified WhatsApp group creation also, because we are processing the personal data of both our staff and as well as the client's staff as well. So everything will come into this particular, of course, voluntarily for the sake of audit, we have an exceptions. But if in case I'm doing something for different purposes, for the sake of convenience, for the sake of easy exchange of documents or information, then you have a lot of things to be covered in terms of consent mechanism and declaration, notices, and all that stuff. Okay. So this is one particular illustration case which I thought with you sent your staff to client place to process certain payroll or performance audit. He has exported the data from the ERP into Excel, and that is being copied into his laptop, and that is getting again taken as a backup into the offices. Or otherwise, if they say only physical copies are available, he might be taking a picture of those physical copies. Again, his mobile is linked to Google Photos, wherein these photos are again getting synced to automatically to his personal drive. So why I'm highlighting these scenarios is these are all having a lot of impact These are all not voluntarily provided by the client. Of course, voluntarily in terms of communication through MRLs where you're asking for information, he has provided, that's fine. But something for the sake of convenience to perform an audit, to gather an evidences, I'm doing this proactively, and these are the things which will definitely fall into the consent mechanism, and lot much of documentation is involved. These are the few things what we should be considering. And of course, security violations, something happening to the laptop or something, someone hacking staff Google Photos, and these are all things will end up. Of course, data fiduciaries. In fact, funny thing is, all the penalties of the act they have discussed from the data fiduciary angle, not from the data processor angle, but there will be legal implications or legal liabilities from the data processor, especially from us, our point. Once we have these legal proceedings, we know that the disciplinary mechanism also will come into the picture. And so this very close proximity to the legal liabilities, this particular act. So that's where we should be little worried about. Just skip into one particular another practice what we follow is we have this OneDrive, we have this Google Drive, Dropbox, wherein we register access through one particular email ID, so and so info at the rate so and so domain name. And more or less, apart from the not only the partners, the other team members, the staff also will be accessing that. So there is a huge non-compliance on this point, because the same email ID is being used, wherein 100% of data confidentiality is being exposed. I mean, there is no audit trail saying who has accessed what at what time, who has done this deletion or whatever it may be. And these has a direct violation of Rule 6 of this particular DPDPA rules. So those things which we can consider. Sir, Prerna sir, if you don't mind, just reach the airport. Probably once I get the security check done, I'll try to reach you, sir, if you don't mind.
Right.
Just
I'll continue. I'll continue. Right. Okay. Right. I'll probably again rerun what Vijay sir has done it. So sir was talking about, Vijay sir was talking about the various scenarios, examples and all. To get this knowledge consolidated, well, again, I'm just rerunning the total show again. So we have talked about data, and this data has to be monitored by three people. The data is dynamically exchanged between the three people. That is, those three peoples are, one is data principal. I'll come back to this data principal. Let me just go to this. Yeah. We have understood what the data is. I'll just go back again. I'll be jumping from the slide to slide, forward and back. I'll be jumping back and front, and then to explain it, I'll be just revolving around only the three concepts. The three concepts are what is data and what is the data handling. Data handling is, permit me again, I'm going back. Data handling is the process. Yes, life cycle. So you have data. That data process, what is data, is given here. Direct identities, I'm at the cost of repetition, I'm just saying, because this is an initial session. I'm just focusing more and more, drilling down into it again and again, so that the concepts gets consolidated. At the cost of boring, I'm doing this. What is personal data? Data is directly identifier, that is name, phone number, Aadhaar, email addresses, independently revealing identities independently. Is this the only data? No. There are another data, that is my IP address, through which my identity can be established. It is not only with my name, phone number I am identified, I can also be identified through my IP address. Why are we talking about this IP address transaction timestamp, geolocation data that identify when combined with the others data. Why are we talking about this indirect identities? Why we are talking about indirect identities is we need to understand it is not the only data we are talking about. On one hand, we are talking about data. On the other hand, we are also talking about who are all the persons who are handling this data. Who are all the persons who are handling this data? Data principal, data fiduciary, data processor is handling the data. Now there are responsibilities, roles and responsibilities and liabilities of all the three persons. And there is a data. Now whose data? Who is handling? Is getting dynamically changed. Like say when you talk about payroll data, and a payroll data has financial information. A payroll data has a financial information and personal data information. And this payroll data and sensitive information, financial data and a phone number or a name and an Aadhaar data, if it is processed by a fiduciary, what are the roles and responsibilities? Why this kind of detailed explanation is sometimes sometimes there can be a situation where the data is getting leaked, at whose place the data is getting leaked, whose data is getting, which principal's data is getting leaked. Because when a liability has to be established, when a non-compliance has to be established, when a non-compliance or a liability has to be established, then they have to establish where the data is leaked, at whose point, at what process, and what is the vulnerability or what is the threat or what is the non-compliance action which is triggering, which is the action which is triggering non-compliance is also to be understood so that the act can penalize or regulate it. From that point of view, we are trying to understand what is a personal data. One is direct ident. So if I'm not able to directly identify, now I take the indirect to identify what is a personal data. Even if I am not able to identify through direct and indirect, can I identify through a behavioral data? Yes. Someone is able to identify only phone number. Only phone number without name cannot be called as a data, personal data. Whatever it should be, whatever data, piece of data we are talking about, that piece of data has to relate to a particular person. Unless a particular person is identified, the question of privacy or liberty is not impacted. Now to establish, now to establish a person with phone number or with behavioral history or just a moment, I'm just getting this. Yeah. Yeah. So am I able to identify a particular person whose privacy or liberty is impacted? I'm just trying to find out whether I can directly identify him or can I identify indirectly? Can I identify that particular person through behavioral or what is that he has lost? Remember, I was again and again saying data is two shades. One is privacy and the other is sensitive. And all these 1, 2, and 3 are privacy, and fourth one is sensitive information. I repeat again, 1, 2, and 3 are personal, 4 is sensitive information. So, unless the sensitive information is hit, the privacy or liberty is not coming back. So only a person will get impacted. A person will get impacted. His liberty or privacy is impacted only not only by revealing his data, but also this personal data related sensitive information, if it is leaked out or impacted, only then the DPDP Act penal provisions will get impacted. And that's the reason why I'm drilling down more seriously and focused into this particular thing is only because to understand is only to understand the impact of personal data. Now, having understood this personal data, Where and how this personal data can get impacted is what we need to see. To see that where and how the personal data will get impacted, we have to see the data processing life cycle. Once we see the life cycle, then we can understand this. Yeah, life cycle. The data can get impacted at the collection stage, explicitly user input, automated sensing, passive metadata capture is one side. The data can be collected at different places. So when the data is collected, again, as I said, there is a consent mechanism. When the data is collected, there should be a consent mechanism. When the data, this is collection stage. Why are we talking about so many data stages? Why should we talk about why should we talk about these stages? The purpose of talking about these stages is there are acts or the vulnerability or the liability is all related to these particular stages. Collection. What happens at the stage of collection? At the stage of collection, you need to take a consent. And this consent mechanism is in the rules, it is defined. It is highly complicated and it is fully mechanical driven, meaning it is system driven. More or less, it is a system driven collection. Now, I'm talking about storage. What is the difference between collection and storage? Why should we talk about storage? Why I should talk about storage is it is the responsibility of the fiduciary and the processor to ensure that the storage is as per the act. If it is not properly stored, the vulnerabilities and threats can the threat can be exploited. The vulnerability can be exploited. Risk can occur. If risk occurs, the liability comes out. And the act has defined how the data has to be maintained, how it has to be stored, and hence we are talking about data lifecycle. So storage is very important. Improper storage may lead to the vulnerabilities, threats, exploitation, blah blah. When it is exploited, there is a liability attached to it. Now, the data is taken for the purpose of processing. The data is collected for the purpose of processing. And during the process, there can be a threat and vulnerability. And once the threat and vulnerabilities are there, and it is again going to impact the liability, and hence proper processing is defined again in the act, and hence we need to understand the data life cycle. Then sharing. Internally also I'll be sharing. This is internal mechanism. This is governance related act. This is governance related. I take share data. I as a chartered accountant, I as an auditor, I take data from my client and I internally share among the partners or articles or audit clerks or whatever you call it is shared among internally. If I'm sharing internally, during the process of sharing, which is a process, is my data getting impacted? Is my privacy and liberty getting impacted? If so, the liability will sit on my head. On the fiduciary, on the processor. It gets sit onto them. Hence, this is defined. And hence, last one is destruction. Meaning that the act says that you can't hold the data for more than 1 year. If I have to hold it, I need to have a consent again. It's going back to the collection. Meaning, again, at the cost of repetition, I'm again and again, I'm just going back to this same concept again and again. I'm going back into the same concept. I'm talking about the data, what is personal data, and this personal data including personal privacy and sensitive, and this data is taken for the purpose of processing. That process has a life cycle, and these life cycles, how this life cycle and how the data integrity has to be maintained is defined not only in the DPDP Act, it is also defined in the Information Technology Act. One thing. So why are we talking so much for a chartered accountant? Now, by this time, many chartered accountants who are attending, they might have already visualized what is going to happen because under the ERPs or under your Winman, Sinman softwares, or be that Excel or be that Tally. Now you can see data is having most of the data with name, PAN number, and sensitive information. That is the amount of transaction, amount of financial information, how much sale has been made by a particular vendor, how much sale is taken by a customer. Data of customer is there with PAN and Aadhaar and whatever identity. And at the same time, his turnover, financial secrecy is also combined together, which is sitting in my tally. And this tally, whether the tally has an encryption, why are we talking about encryption? Because the act is talking about how I should maintain. I'll go back to this. Yeah. Rules is talking about consent is the first process of data, what we have seen collection. At the collection stage, you need to have a consent. When it is storing, at the time of storing, at the time of process, you need to have mandatory encryption. Does Tally has a mandatory encryption? Does WhatsApp has a mandatory encryption? Does your Excel has a mandatory encryption? Does your Excel has an access control? Whether Tally has an access control, whether your OneDrive has an access control, whether it is comprehensive logging is there in the Tally or in Excel or in the Winman, Sinman, Computex, whether we are taking regular backups of Tally, of Excel, and whether we have documented data processing contracts. Rule 6 says for fiduciary and the processor, this is mandatory. For me as a chartered accountant who is doing, for my client who is doing it. We have been talking about audit log for a corporate. Now there is no corporate here. There is no LLP here. Every business person, every person who is having the personal data, they need to come into the structure. All these days, someone in the WhatsApp, in the recent WhatsApp, we have seen up to 1 crore rupees. There can't be a corporate auditor. Leave that. That is still in discussion. We need not bother about it at all because that is an immature way of framing a rule, be that whoever it is. Whoever it is. Immature reason is a person doesn't have a turnover, but he has huge liabilities and assets. Then what will you do? So that's an immature way of talking that the corporate with 1 crore will have. Be that as it is. I'm not bothered about that. I've also said if one door is closing, okay, be that. Even 10 crores, even 25 crores, even 100 crores of turnover doesn't have a corporate audit. Leave that. One door is closed, the other door is opened here now. Other door is opened here now. So let's not go into that. But what I'm trying to say here is DPDP Act has opened up huge, enormous opportunities. Yes, it has an implementation challenges. We invite challenges because we get opportunities. When GST was opened up, so complicated VAT, 26 or 29 states, VAT has been combined. It's a heavily complicated. We have handled it and we have learned Excel or many other formulas. And today, DPDP Act is opening up and we are going to become cyber security experts, IS experts, not only cyber security, we are also going to become IS experts in the world because of this, because India has huge potential and it's going to be number 3 or 5 in the world. Today we are number 5, will become number 3 and you can understand the number of chartered accountants who are into practice is very less again. Though there are 5 lakhs, as recently every council member is saying there are 5 lakh members. Out of that 1.5 is practicing. And you can see 1.5 practicing for so much of data now. Potential information. And this is an opportunity that we need to jump today. What I'm talking is, I'm talking about you have various processes and each process has a rule, a regulation. And a breach of all this, non-compliance of these rules is impacting not only the chartered accountant on one side, the client on the other side. And for every data, for every piece of data, there is a client, there is a chartered accountant, there is a business. Now there is no audit. There is no audit. There is only compliance for the chartered accountant. And this is fantastic and this is challenging. And everyone is enthusiastic at this point of time. Yes, I am ready to do it. Yeah. How do I do this? How I need to do this is I need to start role play in my office. How do I encrypt tally data? How do I start encrypting my Excel data? How do I have access controls in my office? Yes, I am a proprietor today. I am today proprietor. I have only one article student, but I have 100 files. All the 100 files will come under DPDP. Now I need to be vigilant. I need to be knowledgeable. I need to be educated about this Rule 6. Now that is a reason why central government has given a time up to May 2027 for all the impacted persons to get on board. By the time the consent mechanism, what we are talking here, will also be mechanized, system driven. The consent mechanism is also going to be a system driven, like our DSC signatures is handled by a mechanism, one particular. Our NSDL is one mechanism. NSDL is one mechanism through which the share data is handled. In the same way, the consent mechanism is going to be handled by an independent agency. Who is that independent agency? Unless you have a 2 crores worth of net worth, you can go get registered and you can also act as a consent mechanism. You can act as a consent manager who is independent outside this framework of data principal, fiduciary, and processor. How do I send a notice? How do I give a consent? It is not that I generate a OTP and the other notice. No, it's not like that. There is a consent mechanism defined into it. That's a different chapter altogether. We'll go into that different chapter altogether as in the process of moving into those areas. So I'm not touching about those consent mechanism now. But chartered accountants, as and when the consent mechanisms comes out defined properly, then we all have an eligibility to get into this business. That's a different story. But by the time when this consent mechanism is ready, my data as a data fiduciary, I need to get registered. Data fiduciaries, data processors needs to get registered with the consent managers, and those consent managers will keep sending the notice and consent. Meaning, if I have 100 clients every year, I need to speak to this. I need to have a mechanism. That mechanism is now under building. But now it is time that the government has already started moving forward into that consent mechanism framework. But am I ready to roll out this? Without this, next year, 2027, say for example, 2027 July, can I file my one client return of income who is not having a taxable income at all? But still, if I want to file his return, I need to move through the consent manager. But whether my office is inbuilt now, whether can I do an audit after May 2027 with all these regulations? Yes, I can do. When my office is purely set up with these processes. What are these processes we are talking about? Secure storage needs to be there in my office. Implement encryption, access controls for all working papers containing personal data. Secure. Why we are talking about the secure? Because it is a process flow. I'm going back to the again. Permit me, I'm again and again repeating the only three concepts here. One is data, what is data, and who is handling the data, and data process, and what controls I need to put in place today. For that purpose, again and again, I am going into the life cycle. Now, kindly memorize this: collection, storage, process, sharing, and destruction. I've collected, I've stored. I'm storing for the purpose of processing. I'm processing to share it with the departments, inside and outside. Now, once my work is over, I need to destruct. So I collect for processing. Having collected, I have to store. Having stored, I will process. Having processed, I will share internally and outside. Once my work is over, I am destructing it. This is what the act says. Okay. Now let's come back. Come back to the what is my role and what is the role of a client. Yeah. Now when I'm collecting the data, I need to have an access mechanism. Access and consent mechanism. Access and consent mechanism. I need to have a contact with the data manager, data managers. Then once it is collected, now I'm storing. When I'm storing, I need to implement encryption. How do I encrypt in Tally? Is data is encrypted in ERPs? Data is encrypted in the passwords are encrypted? Yes, passwords are encrypted. Passwords are encrypted. Access controls are there in CBS. You know very well. We are all bank auditors. We know how much access controls are there. Those who are working under heavy ERPs like SAP, Oracle and all, they know very well how access controls are maintained. Small and medium firms, they understand how Tally access controls are working. And all working papers, of course. Now, access controls. Strict access controls based on the role requirement and maintain detailed authorization logs. Yes, Tally access controls are there. But am I able to see a detailed authorized logs of Tally? Is it activated? No. But how about an Excel file which is shared here and there? I'm getting an uh, Excel file of I'm auditing the HR, I'm auditing the receivables, I'm auditing procurement to pay, I'm auditing cash, order to cash, I'm auditing aging data of sales and MSME trade payables, which is in Excel. Can someone try to say this Excel file is accessed at a particular point by this particular gentleman? We need to have that. Then audit trail. Now, when something wrong happens, when it is audited, when someone claims that I have lost, and then how do I prove when my systems doesn't have an audit trail? As I said today, we are only talking about audit trails in corporate. Now you can just see now. Audit trails through DPDP has silently entered into all businesses, whether they are presumptive taxation. We are only saying that, Array, I have lost tax audit because of presumptive taxation. Array, forget. Now those audits which you have left is coming back in a different shape altogether to us. An audit trail. Maintain comprehensive log of who accessed personal data and when. Because each piece of data today we have has a personal element and sensitive element in that. And hence, I can't say I'm only handling personal data. No, each data has two faces. One is personal and the other one is sensitive data. And other side, you also have data deletion. So once data is processed, my audit is over, it says I need to delete. The DPDP Act is saying that you delete this data. But my Companies Act is saying you have to maintain the data for 8 years. My PMLA Prevention of Money Laundering Act says as long as the case is live, you cannot destroy the data. It's an evidence. You need to keep it. The ICAI Code of Conduct says you have to maintain minimum 7 or 8 years of data of your client. There is now DPDP says you remove it. PMLA says you keep it for lifetime. Corporate Act says you maintain for 7, 8 years, and so on. So who will prevail? All will prevail depending upon the case. If any other act says you have to maintain, yes, you have to maintain. But I'm filing an individual tax return. When I'm filing an individual tax return, there is no corporate here, there is no PMLA as of now. So I have to maintain only for 1 year. But now what happens? For the past 10, 12 years, all this data is there lying in my system today. The day when the act and rules comes into place, format your systems, remove all the past data, or get his consent and start continuing for 1 more year. And this has to happen every year. And this has to happen every year. There is also a tokenization methodology as per the rules, which will go into another class. There's only an introductory. We are not going into those areas at this point of time. I hope I could able to cover and convince regarding the four very important aspects, that is data, types of data, who are all the persons involved in the data, and what is the data processes, 3, and how is this act applicable. 4-dimensional. So there are 4 dimensions. Let's understand this. There are 4 dimensions to this. One dimension is data itself. What are the types of data? Second dimension is who is the owner, processor, fiduciary, principal. Another dimension, second dimension. The third dimension is the data processing steps. Third dimension. Fourth dimension is at each process, for each type of data, for each person involved, has their obligations, rights, and liabilities. So these are the 4 dimensions. And this 4 dimensions needs to be kept in mind at every stage of data handling. And that is what is the DPDP Act. Let's move on to this now. Yeah. Now, client data handling. Just a moment. Yeah. So auditors must adopt a principle of data minimization, collecting only whatever is necessary for the purpose of audit. This requires careful planning and documentation to justify each data request and ensure compliance with DPDP Act. What it says: request only necessary documents. Identify and request specific document required for an audit objective. This needs to be very, 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 very well defined. Avoid irrelevant personal data. Document what purpose you are trying to claim. Maintain clear records justifying each data collection activity. Retention and deletion controls has to be there. For example, I am doing payroll audit. When I'm doing payroll audit, what are all the general records that are available? General data that is available, fields that are available. Employee code, employee name, employee PAN number, employee Aadhaar number, employee basic, city, date of birth, father's name, and financial data. Now tell me, coming back, let's come back to the types of data. When I'm talking about types of data, what is personal data? A name which is identifying, phone number identifying. If name and phone number together, only then I can identify. If Aadhaar number without name, I can't find out who is this Aadhaar number. Which email? Probably, most probably email, but not all times. Address, uh, that independently reveal identity, may or may not. Email, not 100%. If say, for example, XYZ at the rate of, no, I can't. My name is Premnath. But if I open an email ID like XYZ, may not, strictly may not. But otherwise, it's possible. Okay. When I'm doing HR audit, when I'm taking data for my HR audit, why should I take the name? Why should I take phone number? Why should I take Aadhaar number? Why should I take email ID? Is it not sufficient if I take only the uh, employee code and the financial information? Whether employee code itself will identify a name directly or indirectly or behavioral data? No. When it is no, then why the hell should I take the whole dump of personal data? Whole dump of HR data, why should I take? After taking it, why should I risk? So, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. The auditors now needs to plan when they are handling the personal data. Request only necessary documents. Like I said, why should you take the Aadhaar data, the PAN number? Oh my God, why? This is very, very, very important because in the next very important and huge audit that we are all going to handle in the month of March is bank audit. I am 100% sure banks this time will resist heavily that they say that we don't share this data to you. Now, what is the argument that we have? We only say, "Arey, remove the personal data and give me the financial data. You just give me the account number. Okay, you don't want to give the account number, morph the account number, change, encrypt. In the place of 1002, put it as ABC. Transpose, transform, change the numbering system. Like when I write my exam, you know that my hall ticket number is again changed and put a code and my number is removed and a code is pasted and then given it to the evaluator. In the same way, tell the auditor, tell the client that don't bother about your sensitive data. Whatever is sensitive, whatever is personal attributes, remove it, eliminate it, keep that data with you, give me the financial data. Based on that financial data only, I will be doing my audit process. This is what is the data audit planning that now every auditor has to do. It is not the every auditor who is doing audit. Every auditor who is filing even a simple tax return needs to do this. Now, and how IS system audit and IS audit and client advisory responsibilities come up now? As I said, when GST has opened up, I said, it's not that just GST has opened up. GST has brought even Excel skills to the chartered accountants. In the same way, we are all, most of us, like I can say, out of 1.5 lakhs of chartered accountants who are practicing, near about one third have completed DISA. Near about one third of the practicing members have completed DISA. But not even 1% of them are doing DISA audits. Probably we have to go back and uh, excavate that DISA certificate now. It is high time that we need to dig out the DISA certificate now. Why? Because the act is saying that protect the data. Protect data is none other than our DISA study material. And that is what again coming into all these days, sir, all these days we were saying, no one is giving DISA audit for us. It is like we were saying bank audit, we are losing bank audit. We are saying no one is giving bank audit. I have lost bank branch audit. I say if one door is closing, the another door automatically opens. Now you have, now you have hell lot of IS audits, system audits. Not only that, we are also going to have IS system forensic audits now. Now, wherever data breach is there, the forensic audits will pick up like anything. Now, that is fantastic opportunity under the DAB. It is excellent that the DAB is doing fantastic job educating members regularly. Now we need to proactively start doing FAFD and DISA and dig out all those and start revising. There are many courses that are on the uh, digital learning. You have many courses on the digital learning for free of cost. We need to revisit all those now because it is demanding that we need to have that skill. Coming back again on the system and IS audit focus areas, DPDP Act compliance creates new audit focus areas for IT systems and IT and system audits. Auditors must evaluate technical controls and data governance where where whoever is accessing the data. Who is accessing the data? I'm again going back to the data handlers. Who is that? Data fiduciary, data processor. Chartered accountant dynamically changing his roles every second. Every second of my business, my role is changing from principal to fiduciary to processor. My role is changing. Why my role is changing? Because I'm handling the client data. When I'm handling the client data, the client role is also dynamically changing. Sometime it is data principal to data principal, sometime it is data principal to data fiduciary. Data, at an I as an auditor on one side, I am a data fiduciary. On the other side, client is a data principal for one time, and data fiduciary client also, data processor client also. I am also data processor. I hope I hope members are able to understand what I am saying. So dynamically the roles are changing, and that's a huge challenge, potential opportunity for us. And to handle all these things, we need to have understanding about general IT controls. Review general IT controls, GITC, for data protection measures and security frameworks. And these security frameworks, again, security frameworks, there are so many frameworks. RBI has its own framework. SEBI has its own framework. Insurance has its own framework. Many companies types, medical companies has its own framework. Defense has its own framework. High courts have its own framework. Police has its own framework. And everyone has their own frameworks. And that's what I'm saying, that we have to be vigilant. We need to be knowledgeable about how I can understand and implement this general IT controls. Next, application controls. Access controls within the application, processing the personal data. As I said, it is not only the personal data. There cannot be a data exclusively for the personal data. A personal data will automatically have a financial data. Now, when I said planning here, while accessing, if I am able to segregate the personal data outside, yes, I am risk free. But how am I doing this? Application controls in my office. Say, today I'm using Winman. Today I'm using Computax. Can I able to segregate the PAN number data with finance? No, I can't do it at all. Yes, if I'm not able to do it, then what should I do? If I am not able to do it, if I'm not able to segregate it, I need to maintain these controls.
Sir, sorry for
Yes, sir.
yeah. I think we have last few minutes. I think 15 minutes. What I'll do is we'll just sum up a
Yeah,
couple
you
of
can.
things.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
10 minutes of time, and then we can take Q&A for the members.
Shall I have the same PowerPoint or?
I think we can stop. I can
Yeah.
just probably
Okay.
speak out a couple of important.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Once again, my sincere apologies for the convenience caused, of course, flight cancellation and all. Now, let's sum up the couple of important aspects. Of course, we might have to revisit what we have dealt with for the last 1.5 hours or so, but obviously, it is pretty much required for us to get into this kind of act. Basically, let's understand that the objective of this particular DPDPA is to protect the individual's right to privacy. And wherever it is legitimate, then only organization should be processing the data. These are the two basic objectives what we need to consider. And the principles, if I have to speak, it is like it should be for a lawful purpose or so-called purpose limitation. And there should be transparency, and that's how the mechanism of consent, notice, all these comes into the picture. And just to clear this, you might be in an impression that when I say consent manager and all is going to be an employee of the company. No. Clearly, it was mentioned in rules also in Schedule 1. The consent manager or the person who will be handling consent will be a private company incorporated in the Act of India, and with a capacity of not less than 2 crores of net worth and all that eligibility criteria is there. And that's how a consent manager will be registered. And the consent manager will be monitored by the DPPI. So ultimately, the entire ecosystem is going to be on the digital platform, wherein each and every communication between the data principal and the fiduciary and the processor will be happening through this particular digital platform through consent manager. And the grievance redressal or any kind of complaints which was not resolved by the respective consent manager of the data fiduciary, and that's where it will go to the DPP. So just like if I have to compare with the e-way bill mechanism, here it's like any communication with the respective data principals in terms of notice or the consent or erasure, whatever it is, declaration, everything will be through this consent manager. So that's one thing we should be keeping in mind. Why we should be considering this is because we are dealing with such a kind of digital ecosystem. We also are bound or obligated to convert our practices into digital ecosystem. If someone is saying that I don't use technology in my office, I'm sorry to say, this is forcing you to go for that, because if in case you are processing any of the data, if you are entering some data into your system, obviously you need to have certain mechanism of consent, and that will be through platform. And that's how it is forcing you to be going into your digital economy. That part we need to consider. And second, another important aspect is about the data minimization. This is the challenge what we are going to face as chartered accountant, because we might be having past audit files stored in Excel in different laptops, or we might be having email communications past, maybe beyond 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. We might be having photos, evidences, KYC records, article staff records, so many things. So this is where we should be thinking in terms of before the entire mechanism comes into place in say 12 months of time, and then later on into 18 months of time. We need to set the things right in our offices, because even a simplest kind of thing, like the article records, also the way we captured certain KYC information. We have this SSP. So we need to understand whether the data is required in my system. First of all, there is an alternative. How about foregoing what is not required? So that's what data minimization. And a couple of things, what we also need to consider is the entire data doesn't have to be digitized at this point of time. Let's say, for example, you walked into a hotel and you have provided your Aadhaar card and the receptionist is scanning those particular. So obviously it is directly attracting the DPDP information. Let's say she has taken Xerox copy of it. So obviously that is not digitized at that point of time. So it may not come into the DPDP. But saying so, what is the guarantee that the same scan Xerox copy what they have taken will not be converted into digital mode later stage? And these are the things what we should be considering as an auditor when we review some kind of controls or some kind of data security audits, what we do. We need to consider all these aspects within our office first, within these 12 months time, so that by the time it comes, we set our things right. And also we have become proficient in this particular subject. Then later on, we can help our clients as well, or get in a consultancy or whatever. So those things we need to consider when it comes to this particular object. Of course, you have accuracy, fairness, and what you call accountability. These are things what we need to consider. So collected data digital form or converted, originally collected in offline mode and later on converted into digital form. These are the two things what we need to consider. And it's all about personal data processed by anyone. It could be individual, firm, company, professional, startup, apps, any platform, anything. So all those things will be falling party to this. And it's, of course, processing is done in India related to the personal people in India. Of course, there are provisions with regard to cross-border and all, where the act is different from the other acts, where they have permitted all except for those which are exclusively not permitted. So it's that's how the act section has been drafted with regard to the cross-border traffic. And one few things what probably we can consider what we can do within this 12 months of time is, first thing, relook into your current data, identify the personal identifiers, whatever you have within the past data, try to classify those, like you would have classified certain data as confidential, sensitive, high risk kind of thing. Try to classify what is those personal data and what are those which are related to sensitive data. Once you have classified, try to identify whether it is required to be retained as per the regulatory requirements, say 7 years or 10 years, depending on the situation. Then whatever it is not there, you follow a process. By the time that consent management system comes into picture, you need to communicate whether the data is required for you to retain. Then that's where you communicate back to data principal or so-called data fiduciaries, saying this data is lying with us. Can we proceed with the erasure mechanism, and we can give a declaration of that, and accordingly, once the erasure is done, we also give a proof of that erasure as well. So these are the things what we should be considered. And finally, I just want to conclude that, as I said, this act is so simple in terms of reading, but when you try to interpret, I mean, as Premna sir was also addressing, the kind of roles what we are handling, the confusion happens in that particular scenario, saying that whether it is required, whether the consent, let's say, for example, they say data shared voluntarily by the client because there is an audit appointment through engagement. Because of engagement, they've shared certain data. And after that, as part of during verification, you will come across certain information which you try to investigate further or probably get some other additional information. Whether that will be considered as a voluntary or whether I'm going beyond what is considered as voluntary. So these are the few litigation points which might come up during the course of time. Obviously, we get the solution for those. But yes, fortunately, DAB committee is also coming with some kind of futuristic courses like DPDP and all that kind of thing, which should probably equip our members. But meanwhile, what I request is kindly just go through the act, their act, pretty simple act. And we have DAB is also coming up with sessions next week, weekly onwards on the same domain. So you can please continue so that you get proficient while setting your offices first, then start trying to correct the business practices of the client. So, Ankurji, if you have any questions, we have last 10 minutes. We can take up the questions from the members to the extent possible. Ankurji?
Hello.
Sir, any questions are there?
Hello.
Hello.
Sir, there is no as such questions available. Hello. Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Am I audible? Sir, there is no such
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, there is no such questions available for us. Matlab, so much important such questions. But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So let me just, sir, Premna sir, you want to sum up or See, basically, just to give a fair idea, go through the definition parts, go to the notice mechanism, this your section 4 and the respective rules, then consent mechanism. Try to understand the importance of the chain, that is section 9 and rule 13 and so and so. Understand the additional obligation of data fiduciary, significant data fiduciary, because you might be providing bank audits, might be doing the insurance audits, and that's where you need to have a better idea of that. And try to understand the intricacies of data principal rights and the duties as well, both. As much as rights are important, equally are the duties. That is also you should try to properly understand. And the rules are pretty simple. As I said, it's hardly 23 rules. Go through that, and we have a couple of schedules also. My only request is just have a glance into that, have a plain read. Then as the sessions goes on, it's the beginning of our journey. So we should surely will get much more proficient as this goes on.
Right. Yeah. What I can say is, if I have pretty good at least 2-3 people in the office, they can start initiating the discussion on whatever we have till now discussed. They can start discussing in the office in a short while for some time, and in small forums they can start discussing its impact. And even government is expecting some kind of feedback mechanism or what it has to be, because they are also not clear in what kind of issues will crop up, like advocates, like say for example, already journalists, press have already forwarded their issues to the government. So this is where our profession needs to be proactive, unless it's a collective wisdom, or I say it is a collective one. Yes, sir. Yeah. So it's a collective work. All the members have an equal rights and responsibilities on the subject.
Thank you.
I request one and all to contribute positively. Think when you start discussing these, we'll get so many other things, because it is in a small stage. You know, when the GST was rolled out, model GST and the actual GST was entirely different. Now, though the act is there from 2023 onwards, it has crossed 2 years, but nothing much we have, as I as a chartered accountant have not contributed much to this. But it's high time that, because at least 30% of the practicing 30% of the practicing chartered accountants are DISA holders. They can very well understand the issues, both from I as a chartered accountant, and on the other side, the client. Not only that, now the chartered accountants who are there in the corporate also needs to brush up their understanding about this. So this is where all the chartered accountants are getting directly impacted on this. So this is what is my take. I think I leave it to the DAB for concluding.
First and foremost thing, sir, I extend our gratitude, sincere gratitude to our distinguished speakers, Premnath sir and Vijay sir, for delivering such a clear, structured, and comprehensive session on DPDP Act. Your explanation on obligation, compliance rule, and the impact on the audit and client data handling have provided immense clarity to our members. The practical illustrations you shared will undoubtedly help professionals prepare for the new data governance framework. We would also like to thank Sri Arpit Kavra sir, Vice Chairman DAP, for joining us today for his valuable remarks, his guidance and commitment, continuing to strengthen and our initiative. Although our chairman could not join today due to other official engagement, we gratefully acknowledge his continuous support and leadership. A heartfelt thank to our participants for your presence and active engagement. Thank you once again for joining us. Have a wonderful evening. We will look forward to meeting you again every alternate Friday for more exciting and insightful topics. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you all the participants for the patient. Sorry again once again for the
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.